This is Support is Sexy, episode 401, with Milana Lechinsky, creator of the Simplicity Circle. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to have you here. You know, it just would not be the same without you. And have you ever had a situation in your business or your personal life, but let's stick to business for right now, in your business where you realized you were making things much more complicated than they needed to be? If so, if you're like me, then you will love the conversation with our guest today. Milana Lechinsky is the creator of the Simplicity Circle, and she's all about figuring out how to manage your business with ease. Everything from learning your marketing style, doing things that you really want to do in your business and not because everyone else is doing that. Guilty. Sometimes you see what everyone else is doing, you let that push you in a certain direction as opposed to being inspired by it and seeing whether or not it works for you and aligns with what you want to create in the world, what you really want to do. And Milana shares her story very openly, which I so appreciate, about hitting the point in her business that she created as a solopreneur, hitting the point in her business where she reached the $1.5 million mark, which for a lot of entrepreneurs, that's the big mark. Hitting $1 million, then you're really rocking and rolling it in your business. Well, for Milana, that was the moment that she realized that she wasn't really fulfilled. She didn't feel happy. And in fact, she talks about having panic attacks. So in this episode, we go into the importance of having simplicity in your business, for being honest with yourself about how happy and fulfilled you are or not, and about key questions that Milana says you should ask yourself to make sure that you're on the right track, doing what you really love, and adopting simplicity in your business. All right, so now without further ado, Milana Lechinsky. So Milana, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having me, Elayne.
Absolutely. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
You know, It's an interesting question because I don't think I realized that I am in love with entrepreneurship until I actually started making money. Because I started my business purely out of need to stay home with my kids and wanted to replace my salary. And so I started realizing that I'm in love with entrepreneurship when I got to do what I loved, and that was creating things, creating websites, creating products, creating membership websites, creating summits, creating product launches. All of that was really fun. And I realized that I get to wake up and do what I want to do. I get to make a decision of what I want to do every day. And how many people can really say that? So I think that that's what I really felt like. Yes, I love entrepreneurship. Absolutely.
Now, when you first, you mentioned that you first came upon it or started experimenting with entrepreneurship when you decided that you wanted to stay home with your children. What were you doing at that time?
I was working at a local newspaper as a web designer, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I was really getting bored at my job. It was 1999, almost 2000, and the internet was just being kind of becoming a tool for a lot of companies to communicate, to market, and I was the department of one. You know, on the left side in the newspaper, you know, if you can imagine a newspaper company, it's like an open floor layout. On the left side, there are reporters and editors, and on the right side, there's advertisement people and graphic designers. And I was the web designer, the department of one.
So you were over in a corner somewhere?
Actually, not in a corner, literally in the middle.
In the middle of everyone.
I had a desk in the middle between those two departments. I didn't belong to any group of people logistically, but also socially. And nobody understood the idea of the internet yet. Mm-hmm. So people would come by, they would see me just stare at my screen because I was creating and I was thinking how to do things. I wasn't typing feverishly like most editors did.
Right.
Or how designers did. So people thought I was just sitting and doing nothing. I felt misunderstood. It was 2000. And so by the time my daughter was born, I started looking for something different. Mm-hmm. I was, when you have your first child, maybe you're too young to realize that you want to be a mom. For a lot of, I had my child when I was 21. I wasn't ready to be a mom. But by the time my second child was born, I was 27, 28, and I was ready to be a mom when I didn't want to put my daughter in daycare. And so after an unpleasant situation with one of the daycare centers, I went home crying, and the next morning I gave my 2-week notice, and I was so happy and scared because I didn't know where money was going to come from.
Right. I was going to ask that. Did you have any fear about, okay, what am I going to do? Or did you know that you would go into online media and figure that whole thing out?
Well, by the time I quit my job, I already had written 3 ebooks, and I started making money with it. I was making about $500 a month. I also had a couple of web design clients, and one of them, I can't believe it, but I remember her name, Nancy Gerber. She was a freelance writer, and she was telling me, Milana, the reason that you are not comfortable even thinking about quitting your job is because you don't have anybody in your family. Because, I grew up in the Soviet Union, 9 to 5, job security, that is the way of life. There was no entrepreneurship in Soviet Union. And so she started kind of, I would say, brainwashing me in a good way about going solo, working for myself, self-employment. It wasn't yet hugely popular. I mean, it was 2000, right? 20-something, almost 20 years ago.
Right.
But those conversations have been profoundly impactful on me. And at the same time, I was also listening to Dr. Laura Schlesinger. I don't know if you're familiar with that show, but she always, slowly dripped that mindset into me. Why have children and then leave them with strangers for a whole day? And that made an impact on me as well, but very slowly. So when I made a decision to quit my job, I was already primed to feel that this is what I need to do.
Now, were you a single woman at that time when you had your second child?
No, I was married to the same man I'm still married today, but he was a student back then. And then he became a truck driver. I always joke, I married a physical therapist, and now I live with a truck driver. He started school several times in America, but English is a huge obstacle for him. And so he never ended up getting the career that he wanted to get. And so he always made less money than me, I would say, in the last 17 years.
So that was the thing that you were considering, that you were sort of the breadwinner and had to figure out, if you leave your job, what exactly are you going to do to replace that income? Exactly. I was a little worried, but we didn't have high expenses. We were renting a small townhouse. We were a young family who didn't need a lot. And we figured if I take my daughter out of daycare and my son, who was 5.5 at the time, we wouldn't need after school childcare, we would be okay. We would be actually saving money. And when my business started taking off and I replaced my salary within 2 years, I actually doubled my salary. When I left, I was making $33,000, and by year 2, I was already in $60,000, income from my business, from my clients, from my ebooks. I knew I would be okay. And then it just all got amplified with other ideas that I had and other things I tried. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now, one of the things you mentioned was growing up in the Soviet Union in Kiev. Did I pronounce it properly?
Yes, you did.
Yes, we practiced. Good. So growing up in Kiev, and I know you came to the United States in 1992, I believe.
Yes.
After a 90-day crash course in English and your music teaching degree at the time. But what was a young Milana like growing up in Kiev? How would you describe yourself as a child?
That is so funny because I literally just spent a weekend with my parents asking them, what did I love to do when I was a child?
So it's fresh in mind.
It's very fresh in mind. My mom said you liked sitting kids in front of you on the bench and teaching them. And sometimes you would cut their hair and their parents would come and complain about the butchered hairstyle, their kids. And I also liked composing music. I spent my time after school in music, immersed fully in music. There was a period of time when I wanted to play with friends and go outside and just have fun, like 12, 13 years old. By the time I was 14, I knew that I need to get serious if I am to become a musician. So I spent a lot of my time in music. I was known in my school as that music girl, that piano girl. And I ended up going all the way as much as I could before immigrating. So I went to college. I majored in theory, history, and composition in music. And I graduated and we immediately immigrated, like literally a summer later, we were in America.
We being you and your husband?
My husband, myself, my mom, dad, and my brother.
Oh, the whole family. Okay.
Family, yes.
So what was the plan for you when you came here in 1992? Did you know what you wanted to do, or was it just, we know we want to move to the United States and we'll figure it out?
I was a child. I was 19 and I was already married. My husband was 8 years older. My parents are the ones who made a decision to immigrate. I just tagged along. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know necessarily what I was going to do. I do remember that my uncle, who already lived in the States since 1979, when he found out that I went to study music, he was like, America doesn't need musicians. There's no music in America. Nobody cares about music. And so I was really deeply concerned about that because music is all I knew.
Right.
And when I came, I attempted to jumpstart my music career here. I was giving piano lessons at $6 per lesson. I was attempting to study under an American piano teacher just to see what she was doing, but it didn't stick. It didn't take. And when my son was born in 1994, a couple of years later, I decided that I'm going to sort of say goodbye to my music career and move on to something that could support me.
Was that difficult?
It was an experience that caused a lot of grief. And I grieved, I cried. I remember going to college and switching my major from music, which I initially started here, to computer information systems, and I cried. I couldn't see myself, like it was an identity crisis. I couldn't see myself as anything but a musician. And suddenly I'm not a musician anymore. What do you mean? What's going on? What's happening? But I started studying computers, and I hadn't seen a computer in my life until I came to the States. Apparently they were there. I just, as a musician, you don't touch computers.
Right. It wasn't part of your life.
It wasn't part of my life, and so I was like totally another planet for me. But I ended up graduating in computer systems and becoming a programmer and then web developer. And I ended up, using my computer skills and even my programming skills to make money in my business. One of my very first businesses was called Assessment Generator. I came up with this idea that people could create their own assessments and all their own quizzes and self-tests. And I developed this software that allowed people to do that. So it wasn't a high-level development, high-level software. I didn't have that kind of skill. But I sold it, and people paid me money. And I made an extra $1,000 a month just by selling software. So I figure, hey, that was not all for nothing.
Right, exactly. Now, when you say you sold it, do you mean was it licensing? People would license it?
Actually, it was subscription-based. People would pay $10 a month or $14 a month, depending on the package. And I actually did sell that business years later because I was kind of tired of running a software business and I wanted to do something different. But I did monetize my computer programming skills really, really well. It allowed me to survive. But the thing I loved about it, Elayne, is not programming, not computers. It's the creative part of it. I got to build something from scratch. I came up with the idea and people liked it and they were willing to pay me money. It's always exciting to see when your ideas make you money. It's not about the money, it's just the idea.
Yes.
That makes you money.
Yes, I totally agree. I tell people that when we talk, whether it's fellow entrepreneurs or other people in general, when you talk about entrepreneurship, I say for me, and even people I know who have made millions of dollars in their business, which I know you have, we'll talk about that as well. But they even say it's not as much about the money, the excitement of it, as knowing that I created something or put together a team that created something or did something that people paid money for. Something that came from my idea and I was able to create this and receive money for it. It's almost like the process is as exciting and fulfilling as however much money it is.
Totally. I actually joked with my parents. I said, Mom, imagine that I come home and I say, I got an A. It's like that.
Right. But there's money attached.
It's like, wouldn't you praise me for an A? Why don't you praise me for, making money? She goes, well, no, you can't talk about money because it's a taboo subject.
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk about it. You make money, you hide it in your bank, and that's it.
Was that difficult to get past culturally for you, with knowing that money was one of those things that you just didn't talk about?
Oh, it still is. Like, I'm not allowed to talk about money. If I say, to me, it's like saying, Mom, I got an A. Mom, I made $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Just don't talk about that. Right.
No, you don't talk about that.
Interesting. Well, that's good for you. I mean, some of us still, I have my hangups too. We have so many, and we don't realize it. So they're blind spots really around money, talking about money, being able to ask for what we're worth. I just recently did an episode on that, but a lot of it stems from our programming from when we were younger.
For sure. I actually read a book by T. Harv Eker, The Millionaire Mindset. Mm-hmm. And I remember he was saying that every person has a money blueprint or where it is set and that you can change it. And I don't know necessarily that I had a money blueprint that didn't allow me to make money because I did make a lot of money in my businesses. But there was probably a ceiling. There was probably something. I don't know if it's the emotional or mental ceiling could be related to the skills and how, creativity can only take you that far. The skills that I don't have to this day is like managing a team, taking big risks and taking, bank loans or, getting investors into my business. Like, that's not a skill set I possess. So all the income that I've ever generated has to do with either my perseverance or my creativity.
And one of the things that you created, I saw on your website, the world's very first Telesummit, right?
Yes, I did. I actually came up with the word Telesummit.
You came up with the word Telesummit. So tell us about that. How did that come about? And then is that something that you thought at that time to trademark? Because it's so interesting that now so many people are doing, quote unquote, virtual summits, which are essentially telesummits.
They are, right. I actually did a survey recently, so what does a telesummit mean to you? Is it just a phone event because a telesummit, or is it any virtual summit? And there was a 50-50 outcome of the survey. Half the people said they believe a telesummit is just a phone event, and the other half believe that it's any virtual event. So I'm not sure where that is, but
yes, I think any virtual event.
Yeah, any virtual event that has multiple speakers, like a conference over the course of several days. That's a telesummit. But I attended a think tank. An event was called a think tank, and it was an in-person event. And it was in Philadelphia, which is a couple of hours away from me. And even though I had small children, I still chose to go because I was personally selected to attend. And I was very proud of that. I was very honored. And I came and I saw a mastermind, essentially, of people like a round table, idea exchange, experts supporting each other, hot seats, all of those things that happen in a mastermind environment. And I came home and I thought, how cool would it be to actually do this, but virtually? So I came up with this idea called Coaching Think Tank. And I invited the organizer of the original think tank, to speak at mine. And he immediately called me and said, Milana, I love your idea. Yes, definitely want to participate. But do you mind not calling it a think tank? Because if you get big and I get big, people will be confused. I still remember that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of got deflated. And I thought, I really like the name think tank. What else could I possibly call it? And I started searching. And the word summit came to mind, and knowing that it's a distance event, I added the thing in front of it, tele, and I actually use a hyphen. The hyphen has since been removed, but the original Telesummit had a hyphen, between tele and summit. And I looked up the word Telesummit, and it did not exist. In 2004, the word Telesummit did not come up at all.
Wow. So you invented the Telesummit.
Yes. So I invited people to the first Telesummit, and the response was amazing. Even though people didn't yet know what that was, the response was amazing. I thought I was the only one who couldn't travel to all these events in my industry because I had small kids and I didn't like to travel. But apparently there were hundreds, probably thousands of people at that time who preferred not to travel but didn't want to miss industry event. So I created an industry event that you could attend by phone. That was the Telesummit.
So it was only phone. This was 2004, so it was only via phone. So did people call in to a certain number? It was sort of like a conference call?
Conference line, PIN code, and you join. Yes. And you'll be surprised to know, I don't know how much you know about Telesummits, Elayne, but right now all Telesummits are free. When I did my Telesummit, you couldn't simply dial in for free. You had to pay $100. And if you wanted recordings and transcripts, you had to pay $300. And if you wanted recordings, transcripts, and post-summit fast-track group coaching, you had to pay $500. I monetized to the max of my ability at that time. And so that was 2005 was my first six-figure year.
Wow. Now, how did you promote the Telesummit at that time? Because social media wasn't as big then. I don't even think Facebook came until a couple years after, or became hugely popular, I should say. So what was the way that you let people know about it? Did you have your own email list? Or I'm just curious how you started then.
So I did two things. One, the whole concept of a Telesummit is that the speakers promote the summit to their following, to their audience. It's getting a little harder to do that because there's so many summits out there. So you really need to have a unique summit that stands out. I'm actually developing a program that teaches people how to do summits the right way. It's the program that people have been begging me to create all these years, because there are a lot of people who teach how to do summits. But amazingly, the original summit, Telesummit, was not created as a list building event, as an interview series. People got it all wrong. Somewhere it got lost in translation. It was created as a mastermind that I decided to open up to the public. Once you understand that concept, then suddenly your summit looks very differently from any other summit out there, and it's also a lot more successful because of the approach and the mindset that you have. But the other way that I promoted it is I approached organizations that served my audience. So at that time, it was the ICF, International Coach Federation, and they were thrilled to let people know that there is this virtual event happening, and they promoted it. I was very fortunate because I found out later that they don't typically do that, and I just got really lucky.
Excellent. So in the course that you're developing, is that coming soon, or is that something down the line? You're working on it now?
I'm working on it now. It's actually coming within a few weeks. It's coming, yes.
Okay.
Program.
Go ahead.
Yes. It's going to be a program where I literally take people step by step through coming up with a hot theme, determining the topics, inviting the speakers. A lot of times people are confused, well, why would speakers speak for free? Depending on the audience and then the industry that you're working in, sometimes people will not be aware of this model called a virtual summit. So they'll be like, so you're not paying me to speak? Why would I speak? So understanding how to approach speakers that you want is important. And then, of course, how to fill your summit with excited and engaged attendees. That's part of it. But I'm really excited about it because after I created the Telesummit as the concept and as the word, there have been thousands of telesummits and virtual summits around the world. There are websites dedicated to summits. I found there's a raw food international summit. There's LGBT summit. There are medical advancements summits, all virtual. And I'm like, I started that. How cool is that?
I know. Did you think to trademark it at that time or even later, the idea or the name Telesummit?
So here's my theory, Elayne. No, I didn't think of trademarking it, but I truly believe that if it weren't me, if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else. And maybe it would be a different word. Maybe it would be tele-event or tele-workshop, whatever. I think it was the time for an event like this to be born. And if I don't think it would have made a difference. Somebody with something else. So no, I didn't trademark it. But now if you go to Wikipedia and you search for Telesummit, you'll see that my name is under it, and it feels...
There you go. That's what I want you to have some kind of credit for this. Excellent. That's what I'm getting at. Excellent.
I into Wikipedia.
I love it. That's great. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited that I asked some more questions about it and knowing that you're creating a course because I have seen more and more people doing it. I was actually invited to participate in one coming up in February. This woman, Amber Malone, is putting on a virtual summit, she's calling it, with a lot of different speakers. So I know that your course will be very popular. I'm interested in finding out more about it for sure.
Yeah.
So
we were just talking in my, I have a group on Facebook, and we were just talking about the fact that some people believe that summits are dead. And I responded, saying that a virtual summit is dead is like saying that events are dead. It's like saying that collaboration is dead. It's like saying that people wanting to gather and learn is dead, which none of that is true. Bad summits are dead. Good summits will never be dead.
Yeah, I think especially, I guess they have their reasons for thinking that. I can only imagine it becoming more popular just because we're becoming, or we already are, such a global economy, and people all over the world are now getting information from everywhere. You're not limited by, just as you thought about back in 2005, not limited by travel. Before it used to be, I have to go to this conference and it's wherever across the country, around the world. It's this many days. You have to take off time from work. Whereas now you can be a part of so many events, even are doing live streaming. I've attended a lot of events in the past year from right in my home office, watching them in California or wherever, but being able to still get that content and paid to participate, just as you mentioned, when you started your business, happily paid to participate, but knowing that I could do that and do other things or do things I needed to do wherever I am, it's just such a benefit. So that was my reason. So this way, someone in Australia could attend your conference in New York without paying.
So funny you said in Australia, because my very first summit, a woman kept waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning from Australia just to participate in the summit live.
Yes, absolutely. You'll do that as opposed to traveling 16 hours to participate.
Definitely. Yeah, that's true.
That's great. Excellent. So I know some of the other things that you did in addition to the Telesummit was creating the Recurring Revenue Revolution live event, also developing 30 various business courses. And you started the software company, which we talked about, which you sold. And you co-founded the JV Insider Circle, which is a joint venture community, right?
Yes.
So with all of those businesses, really, you're a serial entrepreneur. And with all of those businesses, you made your first million, which we talked about a little bit, which sounds like an entrepreneur's dream. People talk about getting to that first million, doing whatever it takes, doing different kinds of businesses, all of those different things we hear about. But I'm interested to hear from you because I know you felt like at that time, at least according to your website, that even though you accomplished that dream of making $1 million, you didn't really feel fulfilled. You just felt constantly busy. So what was that period of your life like when you hit that milestone, but you felt like you weren't necessarily happy because of that?
Yeah, a very strange period of time in my life. It's been over a year since I left my company. It was a partnership, and it was that company where I actually hit $1.5 million right before I left, which was very interesting to tell people that, because you don't leave a company at the peak of its development. The thing that was really happening for me was the busyness. I've always looked forward to having an empty calendar. This is what has been my secret. People would look at my calendar. and say, where are all your phone meetings? Like, where are all your meetings and appointments? And I would say, I don't have any. And then they would ask me, well, how do you make money? And I would say, well, I create things and I sell things. I create products, programs, and projects. I, conceive ideas and I make them happen. I don't necessarily work with clients one-on-one. I don't have meetings and networking and virtual coffee meetings like a lot of people do because that's not my thing. I generate income differently. But in the last business, my calendar was absolutely full with meetings, deadlines, launches, program delivery sessions, trainings, team meetings. It got to the point where I would wake up and I would just go through the motions. And then one morning I woke up and I said, wow, I really am not excited to get up. I used to get excited. I used to wake up at 6 a.m. and run to my office to work on my latest idea. And that feeling of dread and asking myself, is this all there is? Just waking up and working and going to bed, waking up and working and going to bed. I just started feeling like there was no purpose behind what I was doing. And at the same time, my body was telling me, like, maybe I didn't realize I was unhappy, but my body did. And I started having panic attacks. And so for the last 18 months of that business, I was suffering with panic attacks, which I had never experienced before. Had no idea what they were. I used to call them episodes. I bought a fan and I put it on my desk thinking that maybe I'm just hot and I'm having like a heat wave overwhelming me. I didn't know what to think. And then something told me to look up panic attacks. And as I read all the symptoms, I knew that that's what they were.
What are some of the symptoms that you experienced?
My very first one hit me with vertigo, severe vertigo, a lot of heat through my body. Some people experience the out-of-body sensation, like they can't feel their physical presence. I started experiencing that a little later in the process. The tingling, like pins and needles sensations all over your body. But the vertigo was the scariest one because that's when it felt like I was losing control. No matter what I was doing or how I was sitting or standing, I couldn't get a hold of myself.
Yes, vertigo is frightening. I had that once when it was terrible food poisoning. I don't know what it was, but I remember experiencing that, and I had to lay on the floor in order to feel like I wasn't falling, to feel still. Mm-hmm. It's very frightening, so I can't imagine going through it several times.
Well, the doctor later told me that when you have vertigo, you're not supposed to lay down. You're supposed to stand up.
I couldn't stand. It was just so scary. I could not. I just want to lay here. I just don't want to move. It was crazy. So
right.
So did you go to the doctor after you started having your panic attacks, or once you figured out that might be what it is?
The very first one, I ended up in the emergency room through an ambulance. My daughter had to call 911 because I didn't know what was happening, and it was getting worse and worse, vertigo. And so I had no idea. And the doctors in the emergency room just told me, yeah, it's a vertigo. It happens to some people once in a lifetime. You may not ever have it again, or you may have it a few more times. That was my entire summer of vertigo. And then by September, I knew that those were panic attacks and started treatment at that point. There's not a lot of treatment out there. There's medication. And then I discovered this EFT tapping. Mm-hmm. And that's actually the only thing that had, the best help that I got was from tapping. So I'm grateful for not listening to people who dismiss such an alternative healing method and just going with it, because it did help.
And tapping is tapping on certain pressure points, correct?
Exactly. I think they're calling them meridian points, like on your head, over your eyebrows, under your eyes, under your nose, on your chin, and on your collarbone. There are other points, but these are the primary ones. And if you just go to YouTube and type in tapping for depression, tapping for agoraphobia, tapping for, fear of public speaking, you will find a video that will tell you how to tap and what to say on any topic. It's really fascinating. And it's weird because, you look kind of crazy when you do that in public.
But if it works.
But hey, I don't care.
Exactly.
My husband made fun of me for the longest time. I would get on a plane and I would start tapping because I was like a little bit of fear, not fear of flying, but fear of motion sickness. I'm tapping. So he's making fun of me, starting to tap on his behind to make me, mock me. And I'm like, what are you doing? I'm actually trying to get rid of motion sickness here.
Right. Leave me alone. That's so funny.
I totally acknowledge how odd it may seem to people, but if it works, it works. And there are millions of people who actually do tapping to get rid of certain sensations and symptoms, both physical and emotional. Mm-hmm. Usually the physical ones that are caused by emotion, like a headache that was brought on by stress. That is an emotional related issue. So it's a tappable issue. It's a lot of fun to look at, especially if nothing else that you've done worked for you so far.
What other kind of lifestyle changes did you make after you came through that period and figured out, like you said, these must be panic attacks, tapping works for me, but what other kind of changes ended up leading to you adopting a more simple way of approach to your business?
I realized that it doesn't matter how much money I make, because when I first was working in my businesses, making $1 million was the holy grail for me and for many other internet marketers and internet entrepreneurs. When I finally hit that $1 million, I didn't even realize it. It didn't feel like, oh my God, angels sing.
The heavens didn't open up.
Exactly. It wasn't anything like, oh my God, I'm a millionaire. No, it didn't feel like that. I was tired. I was sleepy. I was unmotivated and uninspired. It didn't feel like $1 million should feel, right? And when I got to that point, I realized like, wow, $1 million really didn't feel any different. I actually remember being a lot more excited when I made 6 figures, $100,000. Wow, now that was a huge milestone. But $1 million was just $1 million. That's it. And so when I realized that, I started questioning like, so when am I happy? And what needs to be true for me to be happy? And I was so unmotivated and so disinterested, definitely going through a period of depression. And what I started doing was really looking for something that inspired me, something that set my soul on fire. I still have people in my life, unfortunately, surrounding me that will say, but you can do this, or you should do that. And my reaction is like, yes, but I will be miserable if I say yes to that. So saying no to ideas that don't feel right to me for whatever reason, that's what changed for me. Is like, if I'm not excited about it, I won't do it regardless of how much money it's going to make me. That's been a huge shift for me, because I've been at the top financially. At the top, for me, $1 million at the top. For somebody else, that might be pennies, but for me, that was a lot of money. And I didn't feel happy or happier. So I spent a lot of my time just listening and searching for the right idea and saying no to a lot of the ideas that don't fit my idea of fun, creativity. I discovered the idea of simplicity. I want things to be simple, but where does simplicity come from? And what I learned was that simplicity in your business comes from understanding your natural abilities and designing your entire business around your natural abilities. So, you might be natural writer, and when somebody tells you, well, you need to push yourself outside your comfort zone, you need to speak and network more. And you can certainly push yourself, but will that generate the level of fulfillment for you and eventually income that you want? Probably not, because it's not natural to you. It doesn't mean that you don't push yourself outside your natural, your comfort zone. You just want to push yourself outside your comfort zone in the right direction. To give you an example, when Facebook lives, the live streaming came out, I was really scared of it. I don't like being on camera. I feel like I need to be very prepared. And, it would take me 17 takes to record a short video. But I tried Facebook Live and I enjoyed it. And I thought, what would make it even more fun? Oh, that's right. Removing my expectations of being perfect. Once I realized that, I now do Facebook Lives regularly. There's no script. There's no image consultant or makeup artist prior to me getting on Facebook Live. Mm-hmm. There's no perfection, and people don't expect perfection. Actually, they appreciate that raw and real feel. So now I'm investing my time and my energy more into using Facebook Lives because, I'm stretching outside my comfort zone, but I'm doing it in the direction that I'm excited about, not the direction that I'm dreading, because I've done that.
Right.
It feels different.
And I think thank you for sharing that. I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. And I think, too, one thing to mention is it very much to me was the idea of how much courage it takes to do that, which we might not think, because I think especially in the early phases of our business, or any phase, even after you make $1 million, you may be thinking about, how do I keep making more money or make another million? And as you said, we make decisions or do things that don't necessarily align with what we want to do or who we really are, or what really fulfills us is driven by some other things, money, of course, and then a lot of times fear. So I think I love your approach and the fact that knowing that it's a courageous choice, but it's possible to choose to say no to the things that don't really fulfill you and know that you can still make money, have a business, and do the things that you want to do. What do you think?
Absolutely, yes. And the thing is that we are surrounded by people who are constantly trying to tell us what we should do.
Right.
Like people that we admire, maybe our mentors and coaches and colleagues, people that we see out there who are successful and we want to model them or, imitate their success by imitating their methods. And many times thinking that way takes us away from the path that we actually should be on. Right? Everybody has their own unique path in business. If you try to imitate somebody's success just because they're successful, you don't know their journey. Maybe they had to travel 200 days a year. Maybe they ended up divorcing and losing their relationship. Maybe they ended up bankrupt. I have a friend who appears to be extremely successful on the surface with all her branding and her websites, but nobody really knows, well, most people don't know, that 4 years ago she declared bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. That trying to follow her mentor's advice and coaching ended up in her declaring bankruptcy. So you really don't know. The only thing you do know is what feels right to you in the moment. And so as I was developing my new business and my new programs, I was very aware of the fact that there's no guru. The only guru is you. You are the guru. To listening to yourself, to your inner guidance, to your inner voice. Some people call it God. Some people call it just your inner coach. That is the voice that you want to listen to the most. And if you don't, you're going to be getting off track and building a business that you really don't want to run. And that's exactly what happened to me. I knew who I was. I've been in business for a while. I'm not a teenager, and I'm a mom with 2 kids. But I started leaning away from my natural abilities and leaning towards my business partners' personality and style of working. And that's how I got in trouble. I was walking away too much from the way that I should have been running business.
Right. And this approach, you call it your the Simplicity Circle, right?
Yes. I started a company called Simplicity Circle. Really funny how I came up with the name. I was at an event, a marketing event, typical event that I would go to, but something just really didn't resonate for me at that event. I was watching the speaker talk about these complex ideas and strategies and methods, speaker after speaker. And I looked around the room and I had this sensation like I rised above the room and I was watching all these people and thinking, this is such complexity for everybody. They're not going to implement even a fraction of what they're hearing in this room. How do they even know what to implement first, or whether it's the right strategy for them? Complexity. And then I thought simplicity. And I started a company called Simplicity Circle. And yes, that is the method that I have been now, like, this is the only way to start and grow a successful business, is by understanding your super skills, those natural abilities that make results come with ease. Anything else, and you're going to struggle, and you're going to doubt your intelligence. You're going to experience inadequacy compared to other people in your field. But it has nothing to do with your, intelligence or your ability to be successful in business. It has to do with what skills you are allowing to come out and shine in your business, right? Because there's a lot of people with different skills. And people are drawn to different strategies. Should you be doing Facebook Lives? Should you be speaking on stage? Should you do networking? Or maybe start your own meetup group? Like, what is the direction? And when I work with people, helping them understand what their super skills are and then apply them to their business model and their marketing model, things become clear as day. It's really crazy. People who come to me, they say, wow, that's why I've been struggling for the last 11 years. Like, yeah, because you've been ignoring the one thing that you actually are good at.
You sort of help them sort through all the noise, if you will.
Yes,
and
that's
all the
exactly
shoulds.
The words I use.
Yes, and all the shoulds. You should be doing this. You should do this next, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I know most of your clients are mostly authors, speakers, coaches, and of course, entrepreneurs, right?
Yes. Anybody who wants to sell their expertise, specifically online, but I guess you can sell your expertise offline. It's just 2017, the lines between the line between offline and online business has really blurred. Unless you have like a brick and mortar location, typically you are selling something online.
Even if you have a brick and mortar location, you probably have some online presence.
Exactly. If you're a consultant, if you're an expert, if you're an accountant, and you want to sell something online, you want to reach people online, that's what you do. And then there are 1,000, 5,000 ways to do that. And so that overwhelm and confusion over which way to go, which strategy is for me, that can be extremely confusing. And it's not that I teach you which strategies to use. We do that as well. But I actually help you discover your motivation, your core driver. When you understand what drives you in life and in business, you will naturally choose the right strategy that have that driver built in for you. It's really, really cool. Like, I spent 6 months interviewing experts and researching and studying this idea of natural abilities and super skills. And what I noticed is that there are a lot of assessments out there that tell you what your natural abilities are, but you don't know what to do with them. And I wanted to take it a step further in business. Okay, so this is your super skill. How do you turn that? How do you translate that into a profitable business? Into a product launch that will work, because product launch works for some people and it doesn't for others, and people are confused. Well, this is why, because you're trying to do a product launch exactly like this person, but you are a different person. Let's find out what kind of things that you need to be doing in order for the product launch to work for you. Those are the kind of things that I like doing with people, is taking it a step further beyond simply recognizing that you are this way. And I actually have an assessment where we identify whether you are a teacher, builder, connector, or champion. And based on which category you scored the highest in, we build your entire business around that personality.
Is that assessment something that you only share with clients, or is that something other people can see too? That's what you work through with your clients?
It is something that is part of my program, but if you go to uniquemarketingpersonality.com, you can absolutely check it out. Okay. It gives you a little bit of information about each personality, but what I do, then we go deeper and we actually design this whole thing, the entire business model and the marketing strategy around, okay, so you're a teacher. What does that mean? Let's translate that into What kind of products and programs should you be creating? It even tells you, it even guides you how to price your products and programs, because you don't just pull your prices out of thin air. You think about strategically, like there are certain things that I've always resisted doing and I never understood why. There are certain prices that I've always resisted charging and I never knew why until I started doing this kind of work.
So uniquemarketingpersonality.com is where people can see that assessment. Okay,
yes.
I'm going to make sure I link to that because that sounds fantastic.
Yes, let me know what your type is.
I will for sure. Also, I wanted to ask you, what would you say then are maybe three questions that our listeners, who are mostly entrepreneurs at different stages of their businesses, but what would you say would be three questions that we should ask ourselves if we were adopting this simplicity model, to use simplicity as a way of either reinventing our business, growing our business, or deciding what our businesses should be, if that's possible? What are three questions, you would suggest that we need to reflect on?
So the first question I would suggest is asking yourself, where do you find yourself pushing right now in your business? Which means working too hard to get results. Where do you find yourself pushing or working too hard to get results? Sometimes you will answer that question and you'll surprise yourself. Like, yeah, that's what I've been pushing. Sometimes it's worth pushing because although it might feel like complexity right now, there is simplicity on the other side of it. And other times when you're pushing, it means that you are doing things that are going to create even more complexity for you in your business. For me, it was actually building a big team. When I walked away from my company, I had 17 team members. And as I walked away, and I realized, like, what am I doing? I don't love building a team and maintaining and nurturing, growing a team. For some people, it's heaven. It's heavenly to have a team and nurture their team. But for me, I'm very happy with a couple of people who are supporting. Right? So where do you find yourself pushing? Maybe there's some things you're doing in your business and marketing that people tell you need to be doing this, and so you're pushing yourself to do that. So think about that. Another question I would suggest, Elayne, would be, especially if you're looking to grow and you're not sure, what feels simple and obvious as the next step for you to create income? What feels simple and obvious as your next step right now, where you are right now, to create income? What's like literally stretch out your hand and that's where it's going to be? Maybe it's, for many coaches, it's to start a group coaching program. For some people, it may be to start a meetup group in their location, in their geographic location, and start getting to know people in their target audience. For other people, it may be digging through their hard drive and finding an older product and brushing it off and refreshing it and selling it. For some people, it's starting to offer free sessions. So it's going to be different for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. For me, the next step, as I was walking away from my previous business and getting into the new business, for me, it was really looking at what worked for me 10 years ago. What has always worked? And I remembered what has always worked for me was creating something exciting and inviting other people to participate in it, like Telesummit.
Right. That's so interesting of thinking back to, like you said, what has always worked, almost like the love interest. I was talking to a friend about that, or maybe it was another guest about that the other day. It's sort of like that boyfriend that's always been there, but you just, you've been friends forever. Then you think, let me reflect, what has always worked about this relationship, or what has always worked? So I love that idea of getting quiet and thinking about what has always been the thing that's been there for you.
Yeah, totally. Maybe one other question I would offer is, what do you want to do? Because when you're faced with a lot of different opinions and options, I really found that the best strategy is to ask yourself, what do I want to do? And the key is to be honest in your response, not trying to please anyone else. Let go what anyone else may be thinking of your decision. The moment you answer truthfully, the answer will reveal itself. So what do you want to do? And the answer will come with clarity, with confidence, with excitement, right? Because people pleasers create a lot of complexity in their business because they're trying to please everyone. In my last few months, I remember thinking, oh, but will our manager be happy with this idea? Will our JV partners like this? Will my business partner agree with me? So I was trying to please everyone else, clients, mentors, team members, forgetting to really ask myself, what do I want to do? And I was kind of lost in that equation, in that business, because I was doing things for others for such a long time that I forgot what I wanted to do. And maybe it's the mom thing too, like I was ready to nurture everyone else around me, but not really taking care of my own needs, dreams, desires, right?
Mm-hmm. Those are excellent questions. I wrote them all down for myself to consider now. Of course, they'll be in this episode, but just excellent questions to reflect on and think about. Really getting clear on, I think your final question really says it too. What do you really want to do? Because there's so much noise out there and so many shoulds that we're all trying to manage. But what do you really want to do? What will fulfill you? Excellent. So now what would you say then your support network looks like, since you mentioned sometimes putting other people before yourself? What does your support network look like now?
Yeah, so my family has been very supportive. And I've never been this vulnerable with my family because as I was building my business and reaching $1 million, maybe they saw me as this invincible, strong woman who is building a company, an international presence and making all this money. And suddenly I crumbled. As I left my previous business, I crumbled. I was feeling lost. I wasn't sure what else I want to do in my life. I was starting to think maybe I should open a music school that I've always wanted to open. So my family, I really opened up to them and got some support, if not practical in business terms, then at least emotional from the point of understanding and patience. So that was great. I ended up hiring a coach who had known me previously, for the last 7 years, she had known me. And so I went back to her and I said, Sean, what am I good at? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do? What do you remember about me? And she goes I remember everything about you. And so she started reminding me about all the talents and gifts that I brought to the table back then, back when I did feel strong and confident and creative so that I could find myself again. And I have wonderful friends, not a lot of friends. I actually, as an introvert, I only have a couple, but they're really good and they're really strong relationships. And then as I started doing a little bit more in social media, I ended up meeting more people and building relationships with people beyond surface level, because social media is tricky. You might feel like you have a lot of people supporting you, but when you actually are depressed, anxious, scared, all of them go away. And not because they mean to do that, but because you haven't really developed these relationships at a deeper level. And so I've actually developed a friendship with somebody very closely just because I picked up a phone and called her.
Mm-hmm. You took it offline.
I took it offline. You're right. I never even saw it that way. I did.
Yeah.
So social media friends are great. But if you notice, most people who post on social media, they post positive things, their successes and celebrations. I usually don't post anything that I'm sad about because I don't want the world to know, right? But when you have your family and friends, those are the people that will listen to you and will hear you and will support you and will love you no matter what. So I think I learned to expand my social support network a little bit beyond the norm. And I really wanted to feel deep relationships, not surface level relationships, because I live in a small town in Pennsylvania. I don't live in California where a lot of people go to networking meetings and they see each other a lot. I literally, I walk outside right now and nobody knows me, what I do, what my dreams are. Like nobody knows, nobody cares. So I had to take an extra effort to create those relationships.
What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
I'm thinking. That's a tough one. I don't really know how to answer that question. Wow. I think what I learned as a female entrepreneur is that I don't relate to the idea of a difference between men and women in business. I feel like if you got creativity to offer, then it's going to pay off. If you got persistence to offer, then that's what you're going to offer. There are a lot of people who will create programs called female entrepreneurs or feminine power or something like mompreneur. And I am a mompreneur, but I never respond to any programs or offers that are specifically designed to women. I respond to entrepreneur groups, people who are driven, ambitious, creative, passionate. So I think what I learned about being an entrepreneur as a woman is that you can bring your passion into it, and that passion, that energy will drive you to success. That's why I always look for something that I'm really passionate about, not just for a money-making project, but something I'm really passionate about.
So in closing, Milana, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
I would have to say it's my mom. My mom is an amazing person. As cliched as it may sound, she came to America at 39. The age, I remember myself at 39 here, and I would not imagine myself picking things up and moving to a new country, learning a new language, studying a new profession, and becoming, one of the most successful computer programmers when I've never been a computer programmer before. And that's what she's become. She learned a language. She's got a heavy accent, but it doesn't matter. She's very successful. She's about to retire. And even though she's not entrepreneurial, she always understood my need to jump in, to try, to risk, and always believed me no matter what. And I think that is what I'm grateful. And she's like an amazing role model because, if a woman in her late 40s can become a computer programmer with English as a second language, what else can you do?
That's right. Nothing holding you back.
Totally.
Excellent. So now tell us, what are the ways that we can support you? Give everyone website, social media. I'll have links to everything, of course, but just so our listeners can hear it.
Absolutely. Well, if you are interested in the whole idea of simplicity as your approach to business, finding where results come with ease, I definitely invite you to my website, simplicityrcircle.com. There is a free book called The Simplicity Principle, where I go a little deeper into this whole approach and the method to running your business and to growing your business, simplicityrcircle.com. I do have a free group on Facebook called Simplicity Circle as well, where, we talk about taking complexity out of growing your business. So there's a lot of simplifying of complex topics, really building a business around what makes you shine. That's a big part of the conversation, and just being surrounded by people who have bought into the premise of growing a business through simplicity. That is rare out there because people are surrounding themselves with complexity so much that it's rare to find. So this is sort of like a safe haven for people who want more simplicity in their business and lives. So Facebook group and simplicityrcircle.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for, I was just thinking about the great questions and all the information that you shared, but this word that I believe I saw on your website as well, and that I love, this idea of learning how to build your business with ease. And I just love that idea. So I think it's going to be helpful for people to hear that more.
Well, because we are trained that building a business is hard. So we expect it to be hard. But in reality, okay, well, maybe there is temporarily you experience some hardship as you're learning a new skill, as you're learning a new strategy. But hopefully the result of that is going to be easier to grow your business. But a lot of people don't do it that way. They continue to implement strategies and learn skills that are getting them even more complexity in their business. So that is a big distinction there. So with ease is what a lot of people in the Simplicity Circle are looking for sure.
Excellent. Milana, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. I know it's going to cause a lot of people, well, I'll speak for myself, it's causing me to reflect a lot and think about how I'm building my business. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Elayne, for inspiring this great conversation. I loved it.
Oh, good. Excellent. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
About anything. So I would say that letting go what others tell you to do or to believe is probably the most important lesson I learned. People will always tell you what you should do based on their experience, on their personality, on what feels simple to them. So you need your own filter. I actually call it the simplicity filter. You need your own filter to make a decision. Is this the right advice for me? Is this the right direction for me? Is this the right business strategy or model? And one last thing I will say, that everything that we create, we must maintain. Like in a big company with departments and teams, some people create and other people maintain. But when you are running a coaching business or you are an author or speaker, these lines are really blurry. Everything you create takes space in your brain or on your calendar. If you create a team, you need to manage it. If you create a coaching program, you have to deliver it. If you build a community, you need to nurture it. So the question you should really keep in mind is, what do you want to maintain?
Excellent. Milana, thank you so much. Hold on for just a second. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Milana, and I hope you will check in with yourself and your business and see, are you making things more complicated than they need to be, or are you suffering through things being more complex and complicated than they need to be? Is there a way to make things simpler? Is there a way to build your business with ease? Yes. I say yes. Milana says yes. There is a way. You have to find out what works for you. So to find out more about Milana, to get in touch with her, to find out about the Simplicity Circle, all of the information is at supportissexypodcast.com. Go to that search icon at the top and just search Milana, Milana. Her show notes page will pop up with the links, the resources, and all the ways to get in touch with her. supportissexypodcast.com and just search Milana. All right. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Episode 401. We're moving through our next phase. Whether this is your first episode or you've listened through 400 plus episodes, I appreciate you. I always say it would not be the same without you. So thank you so much for being here. If you have a few moments, leave a review on the podcast and let us know what you think about this episode or the podcast overall. All right, so now, until we chat again, you know what you have to do. Make sure you remember you deserve support. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.